So you know how 2024 doesn't have any real primaries because Biden and Trump were always going to be the ones to show off? Well, that doesn't mean interesting stuff doesn't sometimes happen. Trump has done his Iowa primary, and it worked out pretty well for him. Is anyone surprised? A surprising number of people actually voted for other candidates. 21.2 to DeSantis, Nikki Haley's 19.1. So it's not like it was a 90-10 sweep or whatever else. Still, it's an unambiguous victory. A lot of wacky stuff has happened in the wake of this. Hold on, let me get my earbuds.
Trump finished the Republican caucuses with a historic 51% of the vote. You're looking at it right here, significantly more than Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley's second and third place totals combined. DeSantis coming in at 21.2%, Nikki Haley a little above 19%. So how did Donald Trump do it?
Now you might notice somebody's not there. There is an individual who is not present right there. Vivek Ramaswamy absolutely tanked. His final tweet, "There are two genders, and no, a man cannot become a woman. Iowa, I'm asking for your vote tonight." That was his inspired take. That was his pitch to the people of Iowa on the way in. You know, men are men, women are women. Vote for me. Tanked it. Now, the reason why he tanked it is obvious. The only reason Vivek Ramaswamy was even present through all of this is because he wanted to soak up Trump's, the attention Trump would have gotten if he had been present at the primary debates. Vivek essentially just wanted to be there, get a book deal or two, leave. I don't think he has any broader political aspirations. I don't think he cares about or believes in anything. He condemned January 6th back when it happened. Now he says he supports it. He condemned Trump before. Here's a Mehdi Hassan clip. Remember Mehdi Hassan? Remember that guy who MSNBC outed for being pro-Palestinian? I remember. I haven't forgotten.
You say he behaved in downright abhorrent behavior that makes him a danger to democracy. What was it that was downright? Tell me what he did that was downright abhorrent.
Let's actually be really fair to your audience. So on January 10th, 2021, thereabouts, days after that incident, I wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal arguing that censorship was the real cause of what happened on January 6th. When asked in response, somebody asked me the question, are you... That's what I wrote. I'm giving you the facts of what I said. That's a hard fact. That was published in the Wall Street Journal. When pressed on, was that condoning what Trump did? My answer was no. There's a difference between a bad judgment and a crime.
And
we
you're
need to
my
be
question.
able to tell the difference in this country.
What did Donald Trump do,
no, I'm not avoiding
in your view, that was downright abhorrent? Second time
I think that the thing that I would have done differently if I were in his shoes.
It's not what I asked, Vivek.
Notice how he can't answer? This clip goes on for another 2 minutes, by the way. Vivek criticized Trump when it was beneficial to him to criticize Trump, and now he's soaking up Trump's attention in the absence of Trump because Trump wasn't present at the debates, and now that the actual primary has begun, nobody cares about him. Nobody would vote for Vivek over Trump, not really. Of course, Elon Musk, because he is eternally wrong, said that Vivek would overperform in this. So, you know, as always, Elon Musk's talent as a reverse, medium, or a reverse prophesizer is, reverse Nostradamus, proving themselves. Incredibly powerful stuff. Why do you think he's not going after Trump? Vivek doesn't care about anything other than attention, money, whatever. He doesn't have any beliefs. He doesn't have any principles common to people who get into politics through business. Like, keep in mind, remember, Vivek made his money by, essentially defrauding investors. There was a company that was doing poorly. He bought into it, hyped it up a bunch before the release of their next product, sold it off to other people before they released it, and then it flopped after they actually did the thing, That's it. That is how you make money in the modern era. It has nothing to do with producing anything of value. It's just finding ways to scam investors. So he is functionally irrelevant from now on until something changes. It's not a surprise Trump did so well, though, in the primary.
So if you want to save America from crooked Joe Biden, you must go caucus tomorrow. The first step. Look at the first step. We got to do it. We got to do it big. You got to get out. You can't sit home. If you're sick as a dog, you say, darling, I got to make it. Even if you vote and then pass away, it's worth it. If you're sick, if you're just so sick you can't, darling, I don't think, get up. Get up. You get up, you vote. Yes, darling. It's ultimately.
Even if you're sick, even if it literally kills you. Go out and vote for me in this primary. I'm guaranteed to win anyway. Classic, you know? Did his people forget to water him? Did you see my video on how washed Trump is looking? How like out of it he's looking? It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. Yeah, he does. He looks like a zombie. He does. Here, hold on.
This is the map that we're looking at right now. Everywhere you see red is a county that Donald Trump won. Now, you might think to yourself, Donald Trump, pretty dominant in the Republican Party. We've seen the polling. It looked like it was going to look like this. This is why this is a surprise. This is why the Trump team feels like they hit exactly the type of place they needed to be heading into New Hampshire. Just flash back to 2016. Donald Trump didn't win the caucuses. He lost to Ted Cruz. And everywhere you see yellow or a brighter red, those are counties that Donald Trump lost. Let's go back to 2024. All of them, save for one, Donald Trump won.
Now, there are a lot of Trump supporters who are treating this like a huge victory for Trump. I have a different narrative I'd like to push. I think this is actually really bad for the Republican Party. I think this is actually incredibly bad for them. As we saw from Ron DeSantis, the GOP establishment has made an effort to see if they could get an alternative to Donald Trump, somebody more easy to control, somebody less egotistical and narcissistic, somebody who could be an empty puppet for their fascist aspirations. They couldn't. They failed. But not only have they failed spectacularly. Donald Trump is the Republican Party. Now, that's a huge problem for them, considering the fact that A, he's ancient, B, he's not very easy to control, he's not reliable, you know, he's not like an easy instrument of their will. And C, he's facing down a bunch of court cases. If something happens to Trump, they're washed. There is no enthusiasm for other people. And if you want affirmation of that, this election, this caucus, had an incredibly low voter turnout. I think it was something like 16% of the state's Republicans. What that suggests to me is that not only do people like support Trump implicitly, 14%. Not only do people support Trump by default, like people aren't even interested in coming out to vote for other people. You know, like there isn't even a swell of interest in the Republican Party to put out any effort to challenge this to challenge Donald Trump's supremacy in the party. It was legit one of the worst snowstorms in the past decade. Well, as we've established, Donald Trump said, go out and die. Vote for me even if you die, you know? So that's not really an explanation, I feel. This is, you know, they simply die, you know? Just go forth and die. No. This is a massive deal. I'm telling you guys, between Donald Trump's obvious, apparent, increasing cognitive decline, the fact that, he's facing down all these court cases, I think this is the real kicker. Sure, Joe Biden is also not facing a primary, not meaningfully. That is true. However, if Joe Biden were to die, the Democratic apparatus could put forward another candidate. I think they've done a horrible job prepping anyone else for that role, especially Kamala Harris, who nobody likes. But I think they could do it. I think it would be possible. I think that they would do a big, like, national day of mourning for our hero, Joe Biden, you know, and then they would say, and in his stead, we put this person, consider them carefully, you know. I think they could do it. I think it'd be possible, at least. If Donald Trump died, I genuinely think that's it. I think it's going to take at least a decade for the GOP to recover from Donald Trump's absence as a party leader. I don't think anyone else is even remotely capable of taking up that point, you know? Donald Trump might be a grifter and a lunatic, but he also has real charisma and personality. The grifters and lunatics that Republicans have either allowed themselves to become or have always, you know, been, they don't have the charisma to take up his... They don't have the Trump riz. They can't take up his mantle. And I don't think people really like him. I don't think Republicans really like Republican candidates that much, except for Trump. The impression that I get is that for the most part, they all just love Trump and everyone else is part of this like big kind of like culture war adjacent, you know what I mean? Like they're all in like the same boat, so they support them through adjacency. But aside from that, I don't know. I think this is good. I think this is good news. Here, we'll finish the clip. Oh, no, wait. Before we finish the clip, hold on. I think this happened like immediately after the primary. As you can see, Nikki Haley came right under DeSantis in Iowa, actually got a county there as well.
Racist party? Are you involved in a racist party?
No. We're not a racist country, Brian. We've never been a racist country. Our goal is to make sure that today is better than yesterday. Are we perfect? No. But our goal is to always make sure we try and be more perfect every day that we can. I know I faced racism when I was growing up, but I can tell you today is a lot better than it was then.
Yeah, guys, I know it might be hard to tell. She's like Indian or something. Or is she Indian? Or was it Pakistan? I don't remember. I know that Indians and Pakistani people are going to be mad at me potentially confusing the two. But in fairness, you are neighbors. Indian? Okay, Indian, yeah.
Our goal is to lift up everybody, not go and divide people on race or gender or party or anything else. We've had enough of that in America. That's why I'm so passionate about doing this. I don't want my kids growing up where they're sitting there thinking that they're disadvantaged because of a color or a gender. I want them to know that if they work hard, they can do and be anything they want to be in America.
You know, she's kind of like a funny reminder of what the Republican Party used to be, or maybe what it like part of it has represented. Remember before when she said that slavery was about states' rights, and Donald Trump went up there on stage and he was like, Nikki Haley, she was talking about what the Civil War is about. It's about slavery. You know, you can say it's a bunch of other bullshit, but I think slavery gets like, you know, because Donald Trump is, of course, like a New York liberal historically, so he wouldn't have grown up on the idea that like the Confederacy was squashed in its infancy by a tyrannical Abe Lincoln. It's just funny because she's from South Carolina, right? So the like narrative that she pushes, it doesn't even seem like popular within the GOP anymore. There's a much more like, I don't know, Nazi-esque kind of racism that seems to have infested it with like the Great Replacement stuff. But in terms of like Confederate apologia, I don't hear that much of it anymore, really. I mean, you'll get it like locally, I guess, like state level, Texas, whatever. I don't feel it's that representative of the national discourse anymore with regards to racism. There are many different styles of racism, many different approaches.
24, all of them, save for one. Donald Trump won. Now, what does that actually mean?
You have to bring up what Charlie Kirk recently did. Charlie Kirk has been saying that MLK was a bastard for years now. He did it in his debate with me, basically. Charlie Kirk is indistinguishable policy-wise from Nick Fuentes. There is an effort on the part of some conservatives to like distance themselves from MLK, which I think isn't going to work out well for them in the long run. I said this on Twitter. Let me see if I can just find the tweet so that I don't have to put in the effort to think twice. Here we go. From Charlie Kirk, the deification of MLK and his proto-diversity, equity, and inclusion ideology marks the exact moment the progress of Black America goes sideways. Their cities disintegrate, their families collapse, educational progress stagnates, they become enormously dependent on government support, crime explodes, 25% of Black men are incarcerated by age 25. You will know the tree by its fruit. Links to a Rumble video. Charlie Kirk has gone more and more sort of evidently alt-right, maybe because he's ass mad at Nick Fuentes making fun of him those times, so he's like trying to show him up by doing their shit but like louder. It doesn't even work that well from a broader... It's bad optics. The Republican Party still puts a lot of effort into pretending that MLK would have approved of what they do today, you know? Then I said, honestly, the fact the modern GOP is so racist they can no longer pretend to respect MLK might actually hurt them in the long run. They've used the myth that MLK would be a modern-day Republican as a shield for decades. I do firmly believe that, you know? I think that the average Republican voter probably does think they would have been on the right side of history back during the marches, the civil rights marches. I really do. I do believe that. I think they're delusional. I think if you took their ideology and put them back 60 years, they wouldn't have. But I think they think that because they've been convinced they're not racist. Most racists don't think they're racists. Racists who actively know they're racists are not a rarity, but they're less common. In reality, most people who are racist just have those biases but aren't conscious of them, or they think their biases are actually truth or whatever. So I think the idea of like actively opposing MLK is a worthless and pointless rhetorical battle that doesn't help the right optically in any way. Like, what did they gain from that? Real question. I'm actually asking, what do they gain from that? What advantage do they get in drive and recruitment by publicly signaling against MLK when for decades their strategy has been to pretend MLK would have been a modern day Republican? It's just driving a wedge, really. Like, I don't know how that helps at all. Just being more racist for the sake of being more racist, you know?
Think about the overperformance, where Donald Trump did better than he did in 2016. Trump outperforming 2016, literally all 99 counties, he did better than he did in 2016. Here's maybe a different way to put this. Where did Trump actually underperform in 2016? That would be none. Trump win margin above 10%.
It's the grift scramble. There is no central plan. Charlie thinks he can get more of an audience or keep the one he has. Yeah, I agree. I do. I think that, and this has always been the issue with the right to an extent. The right is much better at like centralizing their narrative because they are ultimately beholden to fundraising. A billionaire comes in, gives them all a bunch of money and says, hey, say this thing. And they do, because they don't believe in anything. But because they don't believe in anything, once the money incentives dry up or push them in different directions, they all go their own roads. This is why the alt-right was for a very brief time somewhat unified, but then once the money dried up and they all needed to make their own audiences, like off YouTube because they got banned, they immediately started cannibalizing each other's audiences. They all like devolved into bickering and infighting. They tore each other apart, you know? There was no longevity to that movement because it wasn't really a movement. It was a collection of content creators who wanted to make a living off of being racist online. Now, on the left has a harder time coming together on single issues because we aren't beholden to money in the same way. But the benefit to that is that you see far fewer instances of this like instant cannibalization and, fracturing. Following any kind of like drawing up. The most you get is that people online will try to do like the doomer grift, where they're like, electoralism doesn't matter, nothing matters, you know, and that is an issue, but I don't think that's quite the same, and I don't think it's as severe as what the right has a tendency to do. Keep in mind, Charlie Kirk wasn't just a YouTuber. Charlie Kirk was on stage with Trump multiple times. Charlie Kirk ran TPUSA. You know, like Charlie Kirk isn't just some rando. If an organization with that much weight to it can just fall to the wayside, you know, through the cannibalization process, it's very, very different, I feel. But, you know, whatever.
10% higher than everybody else in the actual primary. Every county except for two. Ames, which is more of a college town, which he actually ended up winning, unlike in 2016. And in Johnson County, where Iowa City is, the University of Iowa, where Nikki Haley won by all of one vote. That is not a sweeping victory based on my math. Brandon, not a math guy, but pretty confident in that. So how did he actually do it? Well, there were two things that we were really watching coming into this caucus experience. One was up here, the northwest area of the state. This is evangelical country. This is country that Donald Trump struggled mightily with in 2016.
Thankfully, all evangelicals now like Trump because evangelicals are down to a man lunatic pieces of shit. The only reason they didn't like Trump is because they saw him as like a brash, arrogant coastal elite. But evangelicals love nothing more than grifters in cheap suits. So they're now full it. Yeah.
Donald Trump winning all four of those counties, flipped back into 2016. He lost all of them. And not only did he lose all of them, he, for the most part, didn't really place well at all, not even in the top three in some of those counties. In Sioux County, wasn't even in the top three. Flipped to 2024, he wins by 14 points. This is the type of county that Ron DeSantis focused heavily on with his operation, heavily on with visits as well. Donald Trump blew him out of the water.
Do you think Trump's suits are actually that cheap? No, but they look cheap. I've talked about this on stream before. I don't think fascists are very good at fashion because fashion ultimately is about expressiveness, communication, and art. And they're bad at all of those things almost by like virtue of their ideology. His suits are custom made. They're not actually cheap. I mean, they're not like unimaginably expensive. They're probably about $3,000 to $4,000 would be my guess. But they're very poorly made, probably because he either goes to he has like specific requests that they follow, or because they hate him secretly. I don't know. Hold up, didn't the Nazis have fancy clothes from Hugo Boss and shit? No. Hugo Boss was a German company that was commissioned to make their outfits. The artists who made the clothing at Hugo Boss were not like ideological, well, not necessarily at least. I'm saying that fascists themselves are bad at these kinds of things. Not that it can't happen in fascist countries, you know? I mean, fascist countries have people in them who are not ideologically fascist. Also, by the way, people talk up the Hugo Boss Nazi uniforms way too much. Look, I'm not one of those people who's going to say like, just because it's made by a fascist means it's innately ugly. There are things made by fascists that are dope, like the Mussolini sea wall, okay? Like, the Hugo Boss Nazi uniforms aren't bad. Like, they're well constructed, but there are legitimately more impressive, like, police and military uniforms, even contemporarily. Have you seen what the Vatican or like the Italian police wear? Like, seriously, they're not. Like, again, I'm not even saying they're like terrible or whatever, or like, oh, because they're fascist, they're bad. I just think like people overstate how good they look purely because they're trying to be contrarian. You know what I mean? This is not a like amazing, groundbreaking outfit. It's not. Like, there are tons of outfits at that time and today that look comparable because there are a bunch of fashion trends here that have existed for literal centuries. Field coat, waistband, like what? Like they're a little over designed, like, or I guess elegantly more fashion oriented than like most military uniforms at the time. But not by a significant enough. Or what? Do we mean the SS uniforms? I think people overstate it to be contrarian. Personally, there are a lot of good uniforms out there. I wouldn't put these in like the top 5.
Donald Trump winning almost every single place, 98 of 99 counties, and that's why he won 51% of the vote.
Well, John, and
I know I tend to say this a lot, but I really do think this is bad for the GOP. What is this?
We'll be debating one on counter-programming. Speaking of a stage, his 2 closest Republican rivals tonight in Iowa. He's going to participate in a televised town hall on one network. Meanwhile, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley and Governor Ron DeSantis will be debating one another on another network. And O'Keefe is following the candidates in these final days before Monday's Iowa caucus.
Good evening.
On television.
Isn't it kind of sad that the Republican guy who has an incumbent advantage running for re-election only got 50%? Yeah, isn't it a bit weird that I heard a bunch of people saying that Joe Biden was washed because, like, RFK was getting like 20% or whatever, when Trump, the objectively the leader of the GOP, came at 50% in that? There's probably an outsized effect as well because people challenging Trump are more likely to show up at a primary, right? Like, if everyone assumes Trump is going to lead the party anyway, you're more likely to show up if you're a supporter of Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis or whatever, because people who think that Trump is the leader anyway might assume that's already going to be the outcome. It's hard to say. It's really hard to say without more data.
I'm the candidate who's most in tune with the values here of Iowa Republicans, and I think if you're a conservative, I'm your guy.
And driving through the snow to be on the stump.
Don't complain about what happens in a general election if you don't play in this caucus. It matters.
Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley are now in Iowa for the final 5 days.
Governor, how are you preparing for the debate tomorrow night?
And are set to face off in a one-on-one debate tonight. While DeSantis and Haley look to be vying for second in Iowa, a new poll shows Haley has cut former President Donald Trump's lead in New Hampshire down to just single digits.
The only way we're going to win the majority of Americans is if we go forward with a new generational leader that leaves the negativity and the baggage in the past.
That argument resonates with first-time Iowa caucus voter Lauren Vanderreed.
Wait, I'm sorry. Does this video even relate to the content of the title? Trump won't be on Nevada's 2024 GOP primary ballot. Neither will DeSantis, Ramaswamy, or Christie. Here's why. Chris Christie dropped out. Okay, the video didn't have anything to do with the thing, okay? I jumped into that one. They chose to participate in the state GOP-sanctioned caucus instead, which will take place 2 days later. Chose to stand within the state GOP and compete only in the caucus where delegates will be chosen. Why is there a primary and a caucus? Isn't there? There's normally one. Caucuses are run by political parties. Primary elections are organized and paid for by states. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so this doesn't matter. I think that the GOP has failed utterly to find a replacement for Donald Trump or even introduce like a appropriate, I don't know, like a culture of dissent within the GOP with regards to Trump. You know, it's kind of like when you see it's kind of like a revolution situation where you have a charismatic leader who unites the people, but it becomes increasingly apparent that once that guy dies, there are going to be like 50 people cannibalizing the legacy of his reign. I think that's what we're going to see here. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see. Really, so much is on the table with regards to who could win. I still think that in spite of everything, Joe Biden has the lead right now. In spite of everything, because there's so much uncertainty in Donald Trump's future with regards to his ability to meaningfully participate in this election. If Trump decisively takes the GOP nomination, could this strengthen his claims of political persecution? It doesn't matter. The line has been drawn. Everyone who is on Trump's side is likely to believe that he's being politically persecuted with or without evidence for whatever reason. It doesn't matter. You know, it's very much like a post-facts sort of demographic, the GOP voters. If he isn't legally prevented from running properly, do you think he'll beat Biden, though? I'm not sure. I don't know. The GOP is from a fundraising / campaigning perspective. Yes, I've been rattling this this bell for a while now. Okay. This website's trying to load an ad. Newsweek, you loading? You're going to load? Is it going to play noise? I'm just going to mute you preemptively. Okay, nice. Several state Republican parties are reportedly going bankrupt and struggling to raise funds while being weakened by infighting in a year when some of these states could be crucial for the election of America's next president. In Arizona and Michigan, 2 states where the GOP presidential candidate will likely have to win a majority of suburban voters to get back in the White House, state Republican parties are running critically short on money. In Arizona, the state GOP had just $14,800 left in the bank at the end of August. No kidding. In Michigan, just under $100,000. A recent draft report shared by insiders with MLive in early December said the party was, quote, on the brink of bankruptcy. Well, I like this, you know. I like this. I think that's cool. Yeah, broke boys, broke hours. I feel like this is partly happening due to right-wingers losing the neocon plot. Yeah, there hasn't been as much of an effort to be pro-business. They went after Bud Light for one Instagram ad with a trans woman. They keep going after Disney, you know. They're not even pretending to be pro-capital as much anymore. Peter Thiel said he's no longer funding GOP candidates after what happened back in 2020. Swing state Republican parties are engulfed in turmoil ahead of key 2024 races. In Michigan, Nevada, and Florida, 3 states that will feature competitive presidential and Senate contests, state parties have been gripped with leadership strife in the recent weeks. In Florida, the GOP chairman was ousted after facing a rape accusation. They do that? Republicans will oust you for being accused of rape? I thought they would, like, give him a bonus. In Nevada, the top 2 state party officials have been indicted for their alleged role as fake electors for former President Donald Trump after he lost the 2020 election there. Nowhere has the chaos been more pronounced than Michigan, though, where rivalrous factions can't agree on who's in charge. Huh. This is, I'm telling you guys, this is what happens when you succumb to fascism, right? The incompetence starts to bring up. Without the capital interest being the driving lead that holds everyone together, you know, you get an increasing proportion of grifters and lunatics who take hold at every level of power and then proceed to f up. It happened in Nazi Germany, it happened in Italy, and it'll happen here. It's currently happening again in Italy. And it's happening right now as well, you know? Having a loud, boorish idiot lead your party is one thing, but having it manage your party is another thing entirely. You know, it's not good. Does corporate America think it's not time for that type of time in America? I have no idea what you mean. Do you think corporatism is going to schism the party and basically kill the Republican fundraising machine? Like, how long can DW and Tim Pool keep up without corpo backing? Well, I mean, Tim Pool just runs like an internet show, so I don't know about him. I don't know about the flow of, you know, cash into DW. It's more a matter of the actual like state parties and their level of organization. You know, it is, after all, if you're buying out like ads for a presidential candidate or whatever else, you know, that's usually done by the state level. Like, if you're buying TV ads, usually those ads are for local candidates. If you're doing it for like a senator or whatever else, or even like, hey, Iowa, vote Trump, you know, that's a state level thing. Don't want those ads running in Florida. So, you know, they sell out those ad spots, and that's usually managed at the state level. If they don't have the money or the organizational ability to manage stuff like that, it could f them over in the elections. This was an issue back in 2022, but it seems like it's going to be more of one coming up. So, guess we'll see.